Good morning. Today is March what the hell is it? 26, I believe. Give or take a day. I'm never accurate with these things, so whatever. It's Saturday anyway, and we're back up in the same area, an area I'm kind of getting bored with, to be honest with you. We had some interesting stuff with infrasound, but it hasn't repeated itself. The other adjacent area has, due to snow conditions, become kind of a pain in the ass to get into, the point where my enthusiasm for going there is kind of in the pooper right now. I'll apologize for the gloomy tone of this video in advance because I'm in a shitty mood from a shitty week. Not your problem. If you don't want to watch it, no one's making you. Coupled with the fact we've had a warm week but a lot of snow, so there's a lot of snow that's still here. We've had a lot of melt though. I'm surprised by the amount of melt here, but it's all rock hard, but just still soft enough that you can sink into it, making walking through this yet another pain in the ass in a week of things that have been filled with pains in the asses. So with that rosy little intro going, let's hit the trail. Let's see what kind of tracking we can get done today, and we'll see what we do. As far as community-related shit, Thinker Thunker did something stupid. I'll try to find that and see what I think about that. I'm not aware of anything else. In the meantime, let's get moving. And we're back. So far, conditions are... Again, I have to say I'm surprised at the amount of melt, because last week this stuff was really deep. This week I'm post-holing through crunchy. On average, I'm probably hitting, in the deep parts, 3 inches. Where there was a spot over there last week where I was actually in up to my thighs and burning some significant calories to get through the stuff. It was crazy. This week, and I'm going to yell at myself on camera, because what I really need to do after that sour intro, which I may redo, okay, this shit's more like 5 inches, but I need to get dark little work shit out of my head. I used to like my job. Oh well. So the community nonsense of the week, couple of things seem. First of all, Thinker Thunker has taken flack from, among others, Steve Culls. And I'm sorry, I'm too lazy to go into the particulars. Go to Culls' channel, he already covered it, so I don't see any real point or purpose served in being redundant. This post-holing is going to get old. And for those of you that aren't hikers, post-holing is you have hard, crunchy snow, and rather than use snowshoes, you kind of just punch through and make your way, and it's not the most pleasant way to proceed, but some of this stuff is hard enough to walk on without going through, and some isn't. So this is my least favorite set of conditions for the year. I'd rather have light, fluffy stuff, but we would have had that in this part of the country probably like, December, early January maybe, and then it starts turning into crusty crap like this. Right? I've already gone through the whole, it's been a weird winter thing, because it has been. We've been, is that a moose track? No. Those are probably outlines of my old tracks, but they've been melted and refrozen so much that they're... Yeah, I came through here last week, so they're mine. I'll shut up now. Anyway, Thinker Thunker is one of a few YouTubers on the subject that has tried to build up credibility being a debunker of sorts, but then he'll go and endorse some other thing that is likely nonsensical, and you kind of have to, like, pick your perceptional battles with him. I've walked up on this loveliness. Fun. Anyway, I'll endeavor not to get my feet overly wet. It's not that cold, but I got to get away from the freaking shoreline, because that's where all the deep shit was. I thought I'd kind of moved into an area where I'm not walking through all this runoff shit, but obviously I have failed in my mission. Anyway. I'll let Culls have the honors of debunking the specifics of the latest chapter of Thinker Thunker, whatever. I'll read it when I get home. Right now I'm in the middle of nowhere and I don't really feel like using my phone battery on that. I will say, however, and I'm not above criticizing the immortal Steve Kulls by saying there are times he's been kind of sensational too. But it's an interesting place in the community that he chooses to hold, because on the one hand, he is, there, we're past all the damn water now, I think. On the one hand, he puts himself out there as a hoax buster himself. And don't get me wrong, if that's his shtick, he'll never run out of material, because there are plenty of people out there. And my prediction is, it's already proving true. With the advent of AI-generated content, it's only going to get worse. And the products that they put out there are probably going to get better. Which means you need to have an even keener eye than you did before. So for all those people out there that want to believe and want to say that every damn thing out there is Bigfoot, and you're an evil scoffdick if you call out BS on the things that clearly are BS, you're in for a hard time, because the thing, at least with the portrait level AI, like I pointed out before, is look at the hands. Because a lot of the things like Midjourney, Night Cafe in particular, the face can be photorealistic. Look at the hands. They are usually these blobbish looking things with like abominations for what would be fingers, but they focus all on the face and they fuck up the fingers and the hands. Pardon my French. So, not to rag on Kulls for a point, but he is also, he's two parts in his persona. And if he hears this and wants to get mad at me, Steve, we've been able to agree to disagree before. This might be one of those times, but you are one part hoax debunker and you are one part celebrity in the Bigfoot community, and you do at times lose your way that way a little bit. Which is actually one of the reasons why I refuse to attempt to be any kind of a celebrity. I don't want that, because it basically clouds your motivations over time. If he wants to take it personal and get mad at me, that's his choice, but you're also kind of proving me right if you do. I'll say that. There are people out there more well-known than me. I guess I used to be more well-known on some levels, but you know what, whatever. That was back in the days of Nezra. For those of you in the know, we had a falling out, and since then I'm happier doing my own thing, and they can do whatever the hell they want. Whatever. It's another day just to like give a continuance of the weather report, where they were saying it was going to rain all day. So far, it's spritzing at best. I'll kind of cut this short if it starts to rain more, but right now it's not really doing a lot. It's kind of sleeting, which means it's not raining and getting wet beyond a point, but it's also like there's an ice factor here too, but it's still warm enough it's not going to affect the roads, so I'm not really worried about it. What else? There were tall ones and Mark Zaski going at it again. Mark Zaski posted a thing about a footprint, which is clearly a barefoot human footprint. If you believe the historical evidence, going back as far as the Four Horsemen and things of that era, you would believe that Bigfoot in the classic track cast is a flat-footed, what do they call it, the flexible dermal ridge thing, but it's a big flat-footed foot that's more flexible than ours, which is their attempt to explain away how he walks over shitty terrain in bare feet all the time. He's probably got callus a freaking half an inch thick too, I would imagine, being out here like that. That'd be one adaptation, I would think. But you can hear the post going, can't you? I'm trying to keep in the shallow area so I don't aggravate myself past a point. And it's picking up now. You can hear the sleet. It's actually more sleet than rain, but But knowing Zasky, the Tall Ones has been doing a fairly good job at outing the guy because he is not one who takes criticism well, apparently. But I mean, just the opening to the Tall Ones podcast where they show the photo of the foot. Dude, it's a fucking human footprint. It's that obvious. To the layman's eye, just looking at it without deeper inspection, it's probably yours, if I'm being blunt. And thirdly, we have not quite a Bigfoot related subject, but in the coalition, the perpetual debunking forum. I'm waiting. The forum was just posted, but it's basically something where I'm waiting to see if they step into a trap of skeptical fallacy or not. I'll use their own terminology. And what I'm talking about, old beaver effort. The weird thing is, you got signs of beaver activity. Get over here. That right there, all over this place. And never seen a beaver here. Although if you look out there, you got a beaver mound there and a beaver mound there. They're clearly here or have been here in the recent past. Anyway, back to the debunkers. The item up for debate, and this is an interesting one because it's the subject of coy dogs and coy wolves and the hybridization of the northeastern coyote and related subspecies. You have in the mix a southeastern species that's currently endangered, the red wolf, which is a wolfish derivative, but it's being outbred by coyotes, and the hybridization is resulting in a quasi mutation of that species and the extinction of another, which is kind of unfortunate. But it's also possibly an exercise in natural selection, and you have in the mix a population of coyotes that migrated this way. I'm thinking from further out west that at one point had an interaction with a timber wolf population, and the genetics of this has already been proven. So for people that don't want to believe this, there are coyotes in the state lines of Connecticut, but also the greater Northeast, where they have as much as 20% wolfish DNA lurking in their system to various degrees. As well, to make things even more murky, they've been getting it on with domestic dogs of larger, like-sized species, so you have that in the mix too. So basically, northeastern coyotes are effectively genetic sluts, to put it bluntly. But I'm waiting to see what the debunkers do with this information, because the source of information they'd be attacking was written by the Connecticut Department of Environmental Protection. This is a government source of information. So, do they step into the trap of trying to debunk it for debunking's sake? Because coyotes, coy dogs, coy wolves, and the like terms all reflect around these freaking genetic mutants that are forming in the Northeast and have been for some time. They're here. I've seen them. They're real. And if you put one of these things side by side with a coyote, number one, they look notably different, and number two, they do leave different tracks. Their tracks are closer to those of a sizable domestic dog. But if you see them, they look like coyotes, sort of, kind of. Their tails are kind of shorter. I think I've said this in other videos. Their tails are kind of shorter and fluffier, like the hair hanging off them is a little bit longer and fluffier, and they have a bigger neck and a bigger muzzle. It's subtle, but if you've seen enough coyotes in your life, you'll know the difference. But it'll be curious to see if they take the trap and like, oh, that's not, yes, it is. And that's the thing. You know, they want proof, they demand proof. Well, read the damn paper. People with like genetics backgrounds in state laboratories have had these things dead on a slab and done the genetic work on them and come to the conclusion that you have this genetic mix in the situation. It's there. Deal with it. The Growler bear has yet to be proven to me in a way that I've read to be convinced, but coy dogs and coy wolves are a real thing. I've seen them. I had one a couple years ago run in front of my car on Route 20, not far from here. I saw the thing in broad daylight, plain as day, and it was not a coyote. It was one of them coy dogs. Call them what you want, and like I said, the mix of genetic material probably fluctuates and varies quite a bit, but they're here, and they're real, and the coalition, should they choose to step into the trap of debunking, are wrong. I'll say that in advance. If they accept they're here, it's an interesting thing to dig into. I say this because this conversation has already popped up on the International Skeptic Forum, and a well-known blowhard there. I'm not going to call him a skeptic because that's not what he is. He's a narcissist, kind of like the head guy of the coalition. But he tried to say there are no wolves in the Northeast. No one was saying that. Huh? Yeah, well, no one was saying that. One was saying that at one point a segment of the population that is creating the local gene pool that we have now came from further west, and at one point they had relations with wolves. That wolf DNA is here. Not a lot of it, but it is in the mix. The red wolf population is not native to Connecticut either, but a population of coyotes, and there's no distinctive geographical feature keeping these animals from coming north from south or west to east. We had a freaking mountain lion that this same blowhard said wasn't here get hit by a car in 2007 in the suburbs of Darien, Connecticut. It was on the local news. They actually had to go and get a picture of the dead one. It had gotten here from South Dakota. Again, there's no geography keeping them out of here. You can't categorically go by what people say. This guy was like citing some kind of a National Forestry Service thing. And if you look at the current one for black bears, they're not south of freaking New Hampshire. Connecticut has a healthy population of growing population of black bears. New Jersey suburbs have been overrun by bears. These things are not accurate. The numbers are not monolithic. They flow over time. Conditions change over time. And the bears and the coyotes and things move with these things. They change and adapt as they go. Yeah, Connecticut has moose too, and I've heard people get skeptical about that. When I was out here with Nezra member a couple of weeks ago, there were moose tracks out over there on the other side of the pond. We were tracking one for a bit. They're here. There's probably a local pod of moose, like 4 or 5 in this greater neighborhood that we're in right now. You don't always see their tracks in here, but they're about, if you left a couple of trail cams out here long enough, you'd probably get a picture of one. But I'm waiting for them to try to debunk that because, you know, and the funny thing is with the skeptic forum is this: when I was able to post these articles, like from government sources saying, yes, these things do have wolf DNA, he tries to poison the conversation by, well, you said, he'll try to twist your words and move the goalpost in the conversation, and that is what debunkers do. They can't be wrong. They cannot abide by being wrong, because a lot of them are not skeptics in the proper sense. They are narcissists, and they will change things and they will gaslight. Because now we're moving into what? Now there's a lot of good books out there about malignant narcissism. And if you want to deal with how these people handle their business, read up on this. They can't prove themselves right, they start the gaslighting process. Oh, well, that's not what I meant. You didn't mean that. Yeah, I know exactly what I meant, motherfucker. Don't tell me that. And pardon my French again, but I have little patience for these idiots. A lot of their blanket debunking efforts for the Bigfoot subject and other things are no less nonsensical than the woo crowd making up some of the far-end fringe stuff they come up with. There's one guy on the Skeptic, I think I've mentioned him before. I'm not going to give him credit with his name because he doesn't deserve it, but he at one point was touting that anyone who saw Bigfoot was hallucinating because they were sleep deprived in every single fucking case that he could think of. Pardon my French again, I got annoyed by these things. Like, so, thousands of cases, every single one, person's walking around the woods, sleep deprived, and he didn't know what he saw. Okay. The bad news is every person that I've ever talked to about a Bigfoot, who's like a Bigfoot witness, when I've done an interview for them, the honesty is they don't know what they saw. They're trying to find closure. They're trying to figure out what they saw. They want to talk to somebody about it because they're not sure. They're not swearing up and down that that's what they saw. They're not sure what they saw. That's not the same thing. And these people don't even consider that. It's another flawed part of a very flawed approach to a subject that is fascinating to some. But the point that to be made with the coyote thing in the sense of this blowhard on this forum is the gaslighting came because people were actually having a fruitful conversation on a fascinating subject, and it didn't follow the debunking narrative, and he tried everything he could do to shut the conversation down because it wasn't following that narcissistic narrative. The reports out there, and if you look at the coalition, they actually link to it, which is interesting. I'm going to watch that later on and see how that conversation develops. But the fact is, don't take my word for it. Go find the article and read through it. It doesn't go into the level of depth that I did, I think, but it does kind of make the point. It's happening, they're here, and they are a real phenomenon. Whether Willie Parcher likes it or not. He was wrong and he misrepresented the conversation, and he got me banned because he's an entrenched player there and he doesn't like to be made to look stupid. But you're talking about a forum that was started by James Randi, who was nothing more than a flim-flam artist in the beginning anyway. I know he's your skeptical idol, but fuck him. He was basically a sleight-of-hand freaking scam artist. Prove me wrong. I'm going to take a segment break, and I'm going to look around for actual tracks now. Although, given the fact we've had a lot of melt going on, they're probably going to be pretty distorted. So that might open up some interesting finds in a different way. But we'll be back in a bit. I'm going to stop ranting now because I'm getting so the miserable part of the day has begun. I'm walking around in wet sleet now, which is not pleasant, but yeah, we're here, so it is what it is. So I did take a look at what Culls is getting on Thinker Thunker about. There's apparently some disagreement about a trail cam picture, so okay. They typically are, you have some blob fest that somebody thinks is more than it is, and that's nice. But whatever. I have found tracks of my own, and I wasn't wrong. They're very distorted and very, very such and such. So my hopes for finding other tracks, I found a couple of deer tracks. Deer tracks don't really distort that much because, Jesus. It suddenly got, we're going to back up. We're entering into a pocket of deepness again, and I don't want to deal with that. Actually, this is right around where it got all deep. North is where the shallows are. If I remember right. Yeah, that's better. I was trying to get over to that bulb patch over there, but this is all deep as hell. I don't know why. What was I going to say? Yeah, the weather is really not like lending to a nice day out here. Oh well. So, the death knell of the trail cam picture is going to basically be when AI art gets to a point where it actually has a trail cam filter on it, because then you can just pretty much make, things up at will. There's probably a way to manipulate it now, but I haven't been interested enough to play with that factor, but I'm sure there's a way. Just knowing what you can do with things like with freeware 3D modeling software, where you can bring in video and stuff and play with it in a program like Blender, is intriguing enough. You can do a lot of stuff graphically, if you know how. Granted, a program like Blender is like high-end understanding. You got to have some technical acumen to do that, but that being said, some hoaxers, I guess, are more sophisticated than others, although the typical yahoos on Facebook don't tend to try very hard. What's sad is you still have people that want to believe that shit, and it's kind of sad. Trying to think if there's anything else I want to cover. Otherwise, I'm going to kind of just kind of go through there, try to make my way over there, see if there's any interesting tracking to be done. If I can get through this place without sinking up to my thighs again. I'm not really in the mood for that, given that I'm being sleeted on. It's not even rain, it's like ice pellets, which is a lot of what you get this time of year. A lot of stuff down too, so must have had a lot of wind in here in the last. You do get a lot of wind through here, so there's an interesting berm if you want to close up on that. Where is it? There you go. Right next to the tree break. Yeah, it's all ice now. I can literally feel it like bouncing off my face. It's not painful, but it's kind of irritating. What else is on my mind today? I mean, there's not a lot of Bigfoot stuff going on. I had reached out to a while back about a encounter that's local to the area. She just got back to me after like 4 months, which is kind of a bummer because at the time it was kind of a fresh encounter, and now it's, window of opportunity and all that. Because once in a while you'll get a fresh one. Like I got one a couple of years ago, and it was like from the day before when the guy had reached out, and Nezra was still operating without its head up its derriere. Yeah, you guys heard me. And then they got old and soft, and that's another matter for another story for another day. I don't know if they watch my channel. I really don't care at this point. We had a falling out. Like I said, I don't consider things friendly between us. It is what it is. That's a whole... One day I'm going to do I'll do a subject-specific video on that. The many fallings out of the Bigfoot world, because it happens a lot, it happens often. And I'm not just referring to myself. I can think of multiple parties who have had multiple fallings out with multiple people of questionable character. There's a word salad for you. How deep is that crap? I want to go over that way. But anyway, we're going to do another segment break because I don't want to just ramble on. I want to cover some ground and do some looking about. I'm actually disappointed that sound, the audio mystery I had a couple of weeks or a couple of months at this point back, it wasn't more long lasting, because every once in a blue moon you do get some weird crap going on in here. This is a weird area in some ways. Oh, where's that tree? That tree right there, the bent one. I was reading something on a science-y website. I forget the name of it, but it was actual science-related stuff. And they were going into how in like days before white men were here and more common, the Native Americans would do that to trees as some kind of a navigational marker. And the interesting thing about that struck a chord with me is this area actually has a few of those. So now I have to go and get all sciencey and do some historical research on what tribe was in this area. I think it was either the Abenaki or the Pequots. Narragansett, I think, were further southeast, but there are a couple of tribes in here, and they were... I'd be curious to... Because we do actually have tribal presence in the state. I'd be interested in picking somebody's brain about that. That'd be interesting from a woodsmanship kind of point of view. Not so much Bigfooty, but, there are other things to be interested in the woods, believe it or not, other than just that. That being said, again, I'm going to show you a lovely picture of this down pine bough that came down. Probably in the I don't want to do a selfie, dumbass. Thank you, dummy. Show them the pine bough and then recenter. Thank you. That would be an interesting thing to know about. If they had like some trail that came through here from a historical context, because I think I told you before, there's a trail across the way and down the hill a ways, and there's a old house foundation down there. Somebody put a plaque up there. It's basically a thing where they made cheese casks. I would have never thought of that. When you learn the history of a place, it's that much more fascinating. If I knew that much more about stuff, I'd probably be more into ghost hunting. But if I don't know the history of the people that would be the ghosts or whatever, who cares? I can't relate to it, and if I don't have some insight into it. Anyway, segment break, and we're going to go make our way over there and see if there's any interesting tracks, if I'm not going to sink up to my thighs in this crap, but with all the melt, I doubt it. We'll be back and hopefully be less rambly. My camera's getting soaking wet at this point, so I'm going to do the outro now, and while it's still behaving. I've seen a couple of like deer tracks and all that. Smaller stuff, it's like with it being this crusty, probably not findable just because it's that hard. It's turned to rain, so it's as it gets warmer, that's to be expected. So I'm going to watch that the koi dog discussion evolve. We'll see where that goes with some interest. And so far, they don't seem to have like any blowhard debunkers attacking the notion. I mean, the article they're sharing is literally like saying, like on a government level, like, yes, they're here. This is a thing. And we're looking into it. So, you know, we'll see where that goes. In the meantime, like, subscribe, hit the subscribe button, comment in the comments section if you want to do so, and share your thoughts on whether I suck or not, or what I could do better, that kind of thing. You know the drill. And with that, I'm going to move away from the rainy day thing and move to other things. And we will catch you next time. And we're coming up on the point in time in the next few weeks. I'm thinking probably second week in April. We're going to make our first attempt to make it up to Vermont, or there's a couple of areas in New Hampshire that have reports that need follow-up to, and we'll try to get up there in the not-so-distant future and change it up a bit. For now, this is your, I'm not going to say host, we're not doing TV. Well, I'm going to bid you adieu, and we'll catch you next time. So with that note, while the camera's not totally drowning, we'll catch you later. Bye.